If you're feeling out of breath, slow down. You are probably going out too fast. There's probably something wrong with how you're attacking your workout. If you've been running and exercising, and no matter what you do, you're constantly feeling out of breath, well, number one, you're not alone. And number two, this video is for you. Now, number three, you may have heard the advice given by a lot of coaches and trainers out there and even your friends. Hey, if you're feeling out of breath, slow down. You are probably going out too fast. There's probably something wrong with how you're attacking your workouts. And for some, you know, that does make a little bit of difference. Easing into things does help. But I'm willing to bet that there's a lot of you out there who are following that advice and still feeling out of breath, still getting discouraged, still thinking that, hey, this whole running thing may not be for you. Well, I'm telling you, that's not the case at all. And in this video, I'm gonna show you exactly what's going on with your breathing and some simple ways that we can fix it and start making real progress. Here we go. Yeah. First, let's review what happens when we breathe. We breathe in oxygen and we expel carbon dioxide as we go through. That is that gas exchange that is vital for not only running and exercising, but for sticking around on this planet a little bit longer. Now, let's do a quick experiment, and I'm gonna show you later on in this video the significance of this. I just want you to hold your breath for a second. Now, you may notice at first, like, oh, I'm fine, but then you're gonna notice that slight tinge of something building up. And it's not actually lack of oxygen in that moment that is triggering you to breathe. It's actually the buildup of carbon dioxide in the body that is triggering that breath. And that is the whole key thing that we are gonna talk about in this video, this relationship and balance between oxygen and carbon dioxide in our body. And when those levels get off or skewed for extended periods of times, how that affects our breathing and our ability to perform. Now, you first might be thinking somewhat logically that, hey, if I'm out of breath, I should breathe in more oxygen. I should try to cram as much air as I can down my gullet because that's gonna help things out. And of course, when we're going really, really hard, an increase in oxygen is going to be important. But the biggest culprit in our feeling of breathlessness is not lack of oxygen, but a lack of carbon dioxide in the system. And to understand this, we got to revisit a little bit of chemistry. See, hemoglobin is a protein in your red blood cells that binds to oxygen and helps deliver it around your body. And for that oxygen to get unbound from the hemoglobin so that it can actually be available to your working muscles, to your lungs, to your heart, to your brain, there needs to be a chemical reaction that drives the pH of our blood slightly down. And that's where carbon dioxide comes in. As carbon dioxide builds up in our bodies, it makes our blood slightly more acidic. And because our body likes to stay in stasis, that triggers the hemoglobin to release the oxygen, to then balance the pH back, and then also to get that much needed oxygen fuel to our bodies. So the problem is this. If our carbon dioxide levels, our CO2 levels, are too low and are chronically too low all the time, our blood pH never drops, which means that hemoglobin never releases that oxygen, which means that you're working really, really hard and yet you don't have access to the oxygen that you need to literally fuel those efforts. And you might start to feel like you're coughing, you're wheezing, you could be lightheaded or dizzy. An extreme example of this is when we hyperventilate, and we know that if we slow our breathing down, that helps. What we're doing when we slow our breathing down is we're not increasing oxygen, we're actually letting carbon dioxide build back up. But the next thing we need to talk about is, hey, why are CO2 levels low in the first place? And why is it low for some, but not for others? That's why we get into the problem with over breathing. Okay, so you remember the little breath hold test we did in the beginning of the video? Well, that's a preview of what we are about to do in a second, which is going to be a breath hold test, which is actually a great predictor of our tolerance for carbon dioxide, how much our breathing volume is and our ability to perform and to run without feeling breathless all the time. And it's this main ingredient and thing that we're going to pull on, because remember, as human beings, we can adapt in positive and negative ways to a lot of different situations. And naturally, when we breathe at normal, healthy levels, we adapt to a normal, healthy amount of CO2 that builds up in our body, which is key for that whole gas exchange chemical reaction we just talked about. But if we're someone who tends to overbreathe, the volume of our oxygen is too high, it also means that the volume of our carbon dioxide is too low. And all of a sudden, we become more sensitive to CO2 than we previously were, where our CO2 threshold was here, it's all of a sudden dropped all the way down here. And so if I have any CO2 that creeps up, and I'm like, oh, I wanna breathe, I wanna breathe, I wanna breathe. And then that shoots myself in the foot, because the hemoglobin proteins and the red blood cells never release the oxygen, which basically shoots myself in the foot, as I just said, in a major way. But let's get on to this breath hold test, and I'll show you what it means. So you have all this information, now what do you do with it? How do you know if you're that person who's been over breathing and that's what's been really affecting your running and your training and your exercise and everything? So we're gonna do something called the body oxygen level test. And no, I did not make this up. This is something developed by Patrick McKeown of Oxygen Advantage program. In fact, I'm gonna link to his website down below. There's some fantastic resources on what this test means, as well as further exercises you can do to improve your own situation. But here's the deal. We're gonna talk about the test, and then we're actually gonna do the test together in this video to see how you do, which is why I'm sitting down now, so I get a nice, comfortable, relaxed position so I can have accurate test results. We're gonna take a normal inhale through the nose, a normal exhale through the nose, and at the end of the exhale, we're gonna pinch the nose. And we are going to see how long we can hold our breath for until our body gets that first muscular response, that urge to breathe. Now, this is not the first absolute low level, like, oh, this is kind of moderately uncomfortable, and it's not a maximum breath hold time that you're gonna fall over afterwards and you're gasping for air for minutes. This is that in-between place where your body's just starting to want to breathe just a little bit, but you should be able to recover for within a few breaths, right? That's that main thing. And this whole idea is this measures my tolerance of CO2, which is a really good correlate for my normal breathing patterns, which is a good correlate in turn for what happens to me when I go out and exercise on the road. So are you ready to do the test? Fantastic. I'm gonna do this thing with you. We're gonna have a clock run all the way upwards for 40 seconds, because that's gonna be the upper threshold. I'm gonna see how I do. If I fail early, we're gonna keep the clock going, and we're gonna see how you do as well. Okay, so let's do the test in inhale, exhale, 2, 1. Whew, that was a challenge. I may have pushed you a little bit too far. I'm on camera, you guys inspired me, but you know, I'd say I probably got that initial surge around 27, around 27, 28 seconds, but I was able to hold it a little bit longer. And we wanna see how you all did in the test. Now, this is very personal to you, and this has, you know, little to do with actually how talented of a runner you are. In fact, there's a lot of really talented athletes that don't do as well on this test. But here's the deal with the results. The normal adult, according to Patrick McKeown's work, his extensive studies researching this, is that the normal adult who exercises moderately should be able to do a 20-second breath hold before that hunger for air is the word he likes to use. The goal for athletes of all levels is to get to 40, to double that. We should be able to comfortably hold our breath, tolerate that CO2 buildup for 40 full seconds before we really feel that need to breathe. Now, if you're someone like myself, when I first did this test a couple weeks ago, I was someone that was like maybe 23 to 25, which was surprising because I thought, hey, I'm running all the time. I'm pretty fit in my running right now. I had no idea that I was so low. But over the last couple weeks, I've built it up to, as you can see now, just over 30. And he really says every 5-second increase you make, big increase in energy and performance all the way around. But if you're that person who's below 20, who's at 15 or even closer to 10, this is the big red flag. This is the missing ingredient in your running, where it's not just about how to slow down or to moderate your pace all the time. It's just that we need to adjust your breathing on a day-to-day level to make you that better, stronger, more comfortable runner and athlete. So now that we have these test results, what do we do with them? That's what we're gonna talk about next. So now we got homework. We gotta improve our Bolt score. I myself am trying to get mine closer up to 35 and to 40. Wherever you are, we know we always have room to improve, regardless if you're a beginner or even more of an elite athlete. This is really important stuff. And we're going to do that because we want to gradually decrease our breathing volume and increase our CO2 tolerance. And I know it seems weird at first. How does decreasing oxygen levels help me out? Well, just as we mentioned about the whole chemistry lesson and gas exchange, it really is the key missing ingredient. The way we're gonna do that is in kind of 3 phases. One is going to be how we breathe when we sleep, how we breathe day to day, and gradually, how do we breathe in our exercise and dealing with higher levels of intensity. And the goal in all of these things is to breathe less through the mouth and more through the nose. And if you think about it, the mouth is this big wide entrance to get a whole lot of oxygen in. The nose is much smaller. So just by breathing through my nose, I'm all of a sudden limiting the inflow of oxygen and allowing for that natural CO2 to build up. So a great place to start up is say, hey, can I just breathe through my nose more regularly? During the day, can I do it at night? And again, can I start to increase my nose breathing in my running, which is, if you've seen some of our videos on this channel, we do a lot. We do the nose breathing mile in the Quick Start program, which is in the app. It's free. You can download it right down below and start doing that program. And we talk about it a lot in all of our training because not only does that affect our physiology, it also affects our mechanics, which is another key part of this conversation. We really are just scratching the surface, guys. So if you want more from Patrick McKeown and you're curious about this oxygen advantage, well, we're gonna link that down below. They also have a great YouTube channel. But if you wanna watch that next level of breathing and understanding mechanics and even different breathing patterns within the run itself, check this video playing over my shoulder. You'll dig it. Guys, always a pleasure. I'm gonna keep filming. You keep earning your miles. I'll see you in the next video. Woo!